The demon was saying, you don't want to be in here. Look at these people. First of all, they're white. Secondly, they have incense. And that's not good. I don't know why, but it's not good. Once my wife and I were invited by a friend to come to Richmond, Virginia, and come to a service with him and just have a little evening of it. And we drove up from Atlanta. We were young and didn't know children, so we could just speed down the highway. As a matter of fact, we were speeding down the highway so much that the police stopped us, took us down to the station and let us go. And we got there, it was about 6 o'clock in the evening, and my friend John said, let's go to church. And I thought, oh my goodness, of all the things we could do after this long day's drive was to go to church. And he was a white fellow, and I didn't want to go to his church anyway, because there's a certain way that when an African-American person often shows up at a church that's all white, you know, they're either very kind or very suspicious. And I thought, oh, I don't want to go there because I don't want to process this experience that I'm going to be having there. I don't want them to say something to me about, I have a good friend who's also black. I didn't want them to say those things to me. So I went inside, and we went up the stairs, the back stairs, to this little church, a little house church. Now they have a grand church, so I hear. And the name of the church is St. Cyprian of Carthage. And we went up the back, you know about it. We went up the back stairs to this little house church, and I remember saying to my wife, this isn't even really a church. And I didn't even lower my voice because I had no respect for those people. And then we went inside the church, and it was very small, maybe about 20 by 30 space. And that evening there were only about 4 people there. And I suppose now that I'm a seasoned, retired Orthodox priest, maybe that's not so bad. But it was bad for me at the time. And they were singing something, and I couldn't quite understand it. And I'm sure that they were speaking in a foreign language. They were speaking in a foreign language. But somehow I could understand it. I could understand what they were saying, but they must be speaking Russian because the sign said, St. Cyprian of Carthage, Russian Church, OCA. And I thought, they're speaking Russian, but I think maybe I can understand that through some miraculous means. But they were actually speaking English. They were speaking English. But this baptism of the soul, this very thing that resonated with my Aunt Willetta, was resonating inside me. And I looked around at the choir, and I thought, oh my goodness, 3-person choir? That's no choir. And sometimes now we only have 2. Oh, we have 1. So I said, that's not even a choir. And then I paid more attention, just like my Aunt Willetta. And it said, rejoice, O Virgin Theotokos. Rejoice, revile of Adam. Rejoice, redemption of the tears of Eve. Rejoice, thou bride unwedded. And I thought, oh my goodness, what kind of language is this? This is another language. And it's touching something in me. And it's touching something in me so deep that I can't even express it. I was on the verge of tears until the priest came out of the iconostasis. And he had a censer in his hand, and he was sensing the congregation. And I thought, oh my goodness, I don't like this church all over again. Little did I know I was in the midst of spiritual warfare. Because the demon who had always been around me from my youth up, who had followed me everywhere I went, was saying, you don't want to be in here. Look at these people. First of all, they're white. Secondly, they have incense. And that's not good. I don't know why, but it's not good. And the priest came out, and he started to sense the iconostasis. And he sensed one side, and I saw that there was an icon of St. Moses, the black. And St. Moses looked just like me, so to speak. He had wide nose. He had kinky hair. He had brown skin. And I thought, surely this must be what I've been looking for. And then the demon started poking me again. And he said, you know what that is? They're trying to appeal to the people in their neighborhood. They're trying to reach out to the people in their neighborhood, which is a predominantly African-American neighborhood. And so that's what they were doing, trying to reach out to these people. Then I looked on the other side of the iconostasis, and there was an icon of Saint Cyprian of Carthage. And he was also looked like African-American person, or someone of African descent. He was about Father Paul's color, and he had wavy hair, a little short afro. And I thought, oh my goodness, what does this mean? This is the flower in God's garden that I spoke of last night. These were the flowers in God's garden that looked like me. And I began to realize that I must join this church at all costs. I must join this church at all costs, no matter what. I went home after I left there and bought a book called by Vladimir Latsky, The Meaning of Icons. And it had all these icons in there, and I tore them out, or not tore them out, I cut them out neatly, and put them on the wall beside my little makeshift icon corner. Because I was going to be Orthodox, no matter what, because I'd heard something. Something from the eternal had touched my life.